Welcome to the Swing Trading with Cycles channel. We're going to do our update on crypto today. It's April 15th, 2023. We do these updates about once a month now, and we've been saying that we have major evidence that this was a 4-year cycle low for Bitcoin, i.e. a major cycle low, and that ETH made its low actually back in June because it didn't make a lower low with the whole FTX crash, right? Bitcoin made a low here in this November period, but ETH actually made a higher low. And so if we zoom into the daily chart, which is what we're looking at here for Bitcoin, and again, take a look at the pinned comment. I review lots of other asset classes. This happens to be one that's in a bullish uptrend. So in terms of picking risk rewards, this one is definitely one. And I'm talking crypto as a whole. We're using Bitcoin here as a proxy. And in previous videos, I talk about some other things I'm tracking, like GMX, the ARB token now, which just came out recently. If you didn't get the airdrop, you can still buy some. It's in an uptrend right now. It's up like 20 or 30% in the last couple of days. And so this is Bitcoin. We talked about this in the last video. Our last video was somewhere around here, right before the Fed. We were on like day 10 or day 9 or 10 of the daily cycle. We had this furious move up, and then we just consolidated, and we've still, like, we consolidated for quite a while after that. Like, right, look at this bull flag. And since then, we've tried to break out here, and now we're consolidating a little bit more. It's day 35 of the daily cycle. And think about the fact that this up move, even though we had like this move down and then this final thrust up, this whole thing was 48 days. And so we're now at 35. The other interesting thing is that Bitcoin historically, when it was bullish, like, this whole thing, and I'll switch to white so you can actually see the other, like, you can see in its bullish mode, it used to rally like that was a 50-day rally. That was a 49-day rally. It used to rally more in that was a 43-day rally, a 50-day rally. So we're now starting to see evidence that we're going back to the, like, it's able to sustain a rally, an uptrend for a longer period. And so that said, we're already on day 35. So now wouldn't be the time to necessarily press bets, if you will, but it does mean that as we get into the next daily cycle low, one should be watching for a higher low as a buying opportunity. And you can see the way this thing is bull flagging, or I should say bull flagged here, that a test of this area, this like 27,000 area, is very likely. That's Bitcoin itself. And just, that's the daily chart. But most importantly, focus on the higher time frames. And you can see very clearly, we'll zoom in here on this monthly chart, we're making higher highs on the monthly chart, right? Like that's like really clear. Open a chart and you can see that this candle, this is the April candle, very clear, is making a higher high above the previous candle, which made a higher high above the previous candle. I mean, in fact, we closed March as a bullish outside candle. We made a lower low below the previous candle, and then boop. So this candle actually basically served as consolidation, right? We made our low back here, and then we consolidated. I mean, this is important. These are the kinds of patterns that you see. It doesn't, not every long-term bottom doesn't happen the same way, obviously, but this is a kind of version of a long-term bottom. We made our low here in November. This is the monthly chart. The following month, December, was red, but it was just an inside month. That's so important to understand. The market is all about higher highs and lower lows. So if something doesn't make a higher high or a lower low, it's not doing anything. It's just consolidating. It's an inside candle. Especially when that happens on a monthly chart, you need to pay attention to that, because that's essentially telling you the real move hasn't happened yet. It's still to come. And obviously, you want to be on guard for whether it's to the upside or the downside. In this case, it went higher. Once we crossed above the high of this candle, that was a buy signal. So above the high, that was 18,373. Boom. So that was your January candle, big bullish month. And notice we also crossed above the high of this month that marks the low. That was the first time you could say November is a swing low. Once we crossed above that, boom, right? So and we closed above it in January. That was your entry, right? Like that was your risk adjusted entry. Like boom, above 21,473, and that's why I tweeted about that like months ago as it was happening. As long as we stay above 21,473, we're good. The following month, February, what did we get? another consolidation month. Now, this is more complex. It did make a higher high. Like, notice this didn't make a higher high or a lower low. In this case, it did make a higher high, but then it went nowhere. It reversed, and then it just stayed at the upper end of the range. So this is actually still consolidation in a different way than this is, but it serves the same purpose. The real move hasn't happened yet. Be patient. Don't get chopped up. And then in March, you get the real move. In fact, you get a dip below this to fake you out. Like, oh my God, we're going much lower. And we even go below that 21,473 mark. But then we recapture that level and go screaming to the other side of it, make a higher high above this. This is called a bullish outside candle. And we still have quite a bit to trade in March, or excuse me, April, half of the month. But so far, we've made a higher high above this previous month. So look at that string of higher highs since this consolidation candle. And again, this was also a consolidation in and of itself, but this is a clear emerging uptrend on the monthly chart. Now, an uptrend does require higher lows. So at some point, we're going to see something like this on the monthly chart. And we don't like, that's not something to be afraid of. It's something to watch, be vigilant, and be very specific about what levels you're watching for, because you want to be buying the higher low, because that's what will happen most likely, right? You don't want to use, you wanted to use these opportunities to buy, not to panic. You want to remain disciplined and not find yourself panicking on this down move. And if you're not in the trade, you're watching for this to get into the trade, or you're setting logical sort of stop loss points so that you can protect profits. If you have if you had the privilege of being part of this uptrend. So that's Bitcoin, again, a proxy for the space. I am partial to ETH, as I continue to say in these videos. Ethereum. Let's switch over to that one. And as I said, we'll start with a monthly chart. ETH did not make a lower low in November. This is a November candle where Bitcoin made a lower low. ETH stayed above its low that was made back in June. But at the same time, this whole trade, like since this big June capitulation candle, this was from the Three Arrows Capital meltdown. Although all the monthly candles have been inside the range of this big bearish candle. So this bearish candle had a low at 880 and a high at 1970, literally 100% range, right? Like from top to bottom. Guess what? We have now broken out above the top of that candle. And we talked about how we needed that to happen as a next move. We also said, once you break out above that, 2,900 looks like the next big level before a test of potentially the 3,600 area. And so that's really exciting, right? And as I said, I'm positioned for that. But looking at the lower time frames, it's similar to Bitcoin. Like, look at this big move up, this consolidation, this downdraft takes out this low, scares folks out, and then boop, at some point we're going to get a pullback now. We've been rallying for how many days now? 35 days. So very similar to Bitcoin. So that's not necessarily a time to panic out. It's all about knowing your time frame, understanding what your levels are, but just know that now is not the time to FOMO in this late into the cycle. Yet at the same time, on a tactical level, this little candle is certainly looking like it's setting up as a little consolidation candle before a nice little spurt higher, which is why I position size in such a way that I'm going to have exposure to this no matter what. It's just a question of what my position size is, because I have some in a retirement account, for instance, where I'm just really not touching that. And so if this thing moons, I'll have exposure through that based on that position size. And then I have exposure in other places like a GMX, like a derivatives, sort of leveraged, decentralized exchange where, again, position size is very small because leverage is very high. So different ways to play this, because if we are going to see a move to 3,600, I mean, that's almost a double up from here. You can make a lot of money with not risking a ton. But I think ultimately this thing probably gets to the 10,000 kind of area, given what the market cap is. I'm talking about ETH specifically. And again, as I'll mention, The other ones I'm tracking are the Optimism token. That's a layer two. I have exposure to all of these on some level. GMX, um, and where is the ARB token? So this one is really new, but look at how this thing is breaking out above this pretend this. I mean, this is like a couple of weeks old. I got the airdrop and I sold it at around $1.40. I'm now back in. um, I mean, look at this breakout. Again, this is very new, very early, and now I wouldn't be surprised if we retest like the 155 area before a continued move up. But this obviously has very little price action. And so, like, there's a lot to be discovered here, but this looks super bullish. I mean, look, this is, if you think about this as like, I mean, this is your hourly chart because, again, there's not a lot of price action. So you want to kind of zoom in. This is a nice series of higher lows, a little consolidation here, burst up, higher low. We're consolidating again. I believe that's before another move up and then more consolidation. Again, this is one where I'm position sized. This only has a $2 billion market cap right now. A lot of room to run for this, a lot of room to run. So that's the update on crypto as a whole. Thanks for watching.